Welcome to Coffee from the Block from the House of Blockchain in Liechtenstein. My today's guests are Jeff and Ivan from TrustSwap. We are going to talk about NFTs, the Metaverse, and some other very interesting topics. I'm really looking forward to today's talk. Hi Jeff and hi Ivan, it's a pleasure to have you in Liechtenstein. You are, and I know you from TrustSwap, but maybe let's start with Jeff. First of all, what brought you to crypto?
Yeah, awesome. Really happy to be here too. First time in Liechtenstein and loving the scenery of the country. What brought me to crypto was in 2016. I had a mutual friend, let's say, who tried to sell me on a Bitcoin Ponzi scheme.
Okay.
And I started, well, I'm like, this is
start, right?
Exactly. I'm like, this is clearly a Ponzi, but I'm researching it. I'm looking into it. And on my journeys, I stumble across CoinMarketCap and I see number 2, Ethereum. I'm like, I have no idea what that is. And so I started researching Ethereum and looking into it. And then for the next, this is not even an exaggeration, for the next 2 months or 3 months, until 4 a.m. every night, I just stayed up researching Ethereum because I really see in Ethereum, I saw then and I still see today, a really viable potential to be able to shift the power structures and power dynamics of the world from like centralized entities to decentralized, of course, but also how that works on not just on a financial scale, but also on a socio-economic and how we work together as a symbiotic relationship rather than, let's call it parasites or digital serfs. So from that point on, I was really set on crypto and how it could change the world. So I just dove head in.
Perfect. So Ivan, what's your story? How did you end up in crypto?
So actually I have quite some a fun story in how I ended up in crypto. So I have kind of 2 directions. So the first time which I heard about crypto was 2011, 2012 during my university studies. And
unfortunately, right?
In St. Gallen, exactly. But unfortunately during that time I wrote a group paper on why Bitcoin will never succeed. So I wish I would have bought a couple of 100 or 1,000 Bitcoins during that time, but I still read the paper, so it still makes sense because I was arguing only from a payment perspective, as we now know that Bitcoin is not really used as a payment. So I was kind of right, but what I did not understand during that time is the whole potential of blockchain in general and other use cases, smart contracts, etc. During that time we just had Bitcoin. And then end of 2016, I got into the topic more from a trading perspective. And during that time I was in a consulting company, and then I wanted to learn a little bit more, and then I entered in the blockchain focus group of that IT consulting company. And this was in between my 2 different startup careers. Before that I was only in startups, then I had to stop over in the IT consulting company, and then I moved again to crypto startups. Actually in 2017, 2018, full-time. Worked for a blockchain startup in the Crypto Valley, and then worked in a lot of different areas, as well as built up a Ethereum mining farm in Eastern Europe, and so really got into all the different areas. And then I ended up in TrustSwap around about 1.5 years ago.
And yeah, but everybody is skeptical in the beginning, right? When I heard the first time about Bitcoin, it was 2011, and I read it in the computer magazine. I was fascinated by the technology, right? But I was before you understand this decentralized nature of things, right? You have to be skeptical, right? There's something new, some money we don't understand, and then you have to be skeptical. Not everybody published a paper as you did, but in the end, this is this ended up that you might have done a lot more research because you ended up in that space, and now it's good that you have that background. I am skeptical with a lot of things, right? And every second week there's a new technology or a new company offering products and services in that area, and nobody it's actually interesting that this technology is trustless, right? That's the whole idea. But we have companies which provide products and services. But then if you have a company, you are an intermediary again, right? And then you have to, depending on what they do, you have to trust them again.
Yeah.
But talking about trust, that's your company is called TrustSwap. Why and what do you do?
So TrustSwap is, at its origin, it was made to be a smart contract swapping platform between 2 parties. when I was running a previous company, an investor wanted to purchase tokens from us at a small discount. And I said, well, that's reasonable, but I don't want you to just take the tokens, sell them on the market. So can we vest them over time? Is there a smart contract available for you to do that? And he said, well, no, there's not. And I'm like, well, what do you guys do? And he's like, well, we use a lawyer. I'm like, okay, how much does the lawyer cost? And he said, it's about 7% for the fee. So I said,
damn it, I have the wrong focus.
Right, exactly, yeah.
That's an interesting business model.
Yeah.
7%.
So I thought that's absolutely ridiculous, because the easiest application of a smart contract would be just a peer-to-peer swap and throw investing as like a secondary layer. That seemed quite easy to me. So I messaged one of my friends. I said, hey, do you want to help build this? And he said, yeah, sure, let's go for it. So it really just started as a way to make normal financial transactions a little bit easier. And we really branched out from there, but it's always like the same ethos. How do we take complex ideas and how do we simplify them and then bring them to the masses?
And make them way more efficient. I mean, this is
Yes.
a perfect example, 7%, right? What's the, if you can calculate it in a percent, but what are the costs involved in such a transaction if you use your smart contracts?
Yeah, well, they're free.
Yeah. And timer is awesome. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to use, right? And you don't have to find a good counterparty. And you said then you split up in several branches, or you offer a lot more things now. Like, what are the other things you're doing?
Yeah, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah. So basically, we have 4 business lines. So one is team finance, which is the smart contract lock, which Jeff just described. And here we have around about $3 billion total value locked from 30,000 locks. And basically, it's vesting as a service, token lock as a service, staking as a service. So all the different things which projects nowadays need. Then we have...
Maybe you can explain that a little bit better. Like, what is vesting, what is how to lock tokens, and why do projects need these functions?
Sure. Okay. So let's take a project which is currently fundraising. So in the traditional space, you have shareholder agreements. You have also stock option plans with employees, team members, founding team members, etc. Whereas, like in the, I would say, real world, you do everything with contracts, and then your broker at the bank afterwards, if you have an IPO or so, he checks, okay, you're not allowed to sell it right now because your shares are locked, etc. So you have all these intermediaries who constantly have to check that. Whereas in the crypto space, you have tokens and you need to solve the same problems with technology. So let's say, okay, you have use cases of investors investing in the token, but they're not allowed to sell during a certain period of time. They're not allowed to sell for 6 months, for example.
But then you cannot say 6 months. Normally you have a block height or something because you don't have any timestamps, right? But you do that with the block height, or?
We do it with timestamps, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, with timestamps, but that's an external source, right?
Yep, so we figured out a way to be able to use actual timestamps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But again, there are different ways to do it. You can do timestamps, you can do block per block. And for the locking, we use timestamps. And that's one of the use cases. Okay, investor invests, 6 months of lockup. Then you have use cases where you say, okay, you have a certain cliff, and then afterwards you have a vesting during a certain period of time. And we realized that a lot of projects, especially for public investments, it makes much more sense to have vesting periods. So vesting periods means that your token is unlocked block by block, hour by hour, day by day, depending on how you set it up. And the end users can decide when to unlock and when to sell. So then you don't have this price goes up, then goes down because a lot of unlocks. So that's why vesting as a service makes in most of the use cases more sense than the lock itself. And so that these are the 2 different use cases. Then you have staking as a service. So if you want to give your users, which are token holders, certain access rights to your products, then you can use staking. People have to stake it in order to have access rights to a Metaverse, for example, or access rights to your products. Or if you want to incentivize them for not selling the tokens, they have a certain reward, which they get from locking their token for a certain period of time.
But with this is staking, right? And you explained it how that works.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different? Because people sometimes mix up staking and lending. I mean, it's you give the token to a service provider, and then in the end you get some return. But that is like really a big difference, right? Even from a technological point of view.
Sure. Yeah. So a big difference between staking and lending. So lending is something that you'd see with BlockFi, Celsius, where you take your funds, let's say it's $10,000 of USDC or Bitcoin, and you deposit it onto that platform. What they then do is take your money that they are the custodian of, and they'll lend it out, or they'll try to do some yield-bearing arbitrage, and then they pay you back in interest. So in the situation of, let's say, lending or yield-bearing, you don't hold custody of your own funds. In the situation of staking, what you're actually doing is you're just putting it into a smart contract that isn't owned by anyone per se. Like that company can't pull your funds out. So you always have self-custody over your own funds. And then in return, as Ivan was saying, in some instances, for depositing, let's say $10,000, you may earn $1,000 yield over the period of 1 year, just through either inflation rewards or wherever it may be. So the big difference is that in staking, you have self-custody.
So you don't have to be afraid if you do staking properly. You don't have to be afraid with recent developments. You already mentioned some of the names where we heard there are big challenges and problems. Companies went into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
If you do staking properly, it's not a challenge. So Ivan, you briefly mentioned the Metaverse. So you do something in the Metaverse as well. Explain us a little bit better what your services are in respect to Metaverses, or the Metaverse. There's not one, but what are you offering there?
Perfect. So one of our next offerings and products lines is the so-called Launchpads. So in the Launchpads, we help like companies to go on our Launchpad to raise funds for their services. And there we basically have like different options. So one is so-called flash launch, which is more from a marketing perspective. Usually the rounds are quite small, let's say 100, 200, 300,000, where it gives them more, the goal is to give them exposure to our ecosystem. Then we have Launchpad itself, where it's a higher round, usually more than 750,000, sometimes up to 2-3 million. And then our users, and we have quite a very big user base, have guaranteed allocations to that round. So depending on how hyped the project is, they get between, let's say, $100 guaranteed allocation up to $1,000, $2,000 guaranteed allocation. And then we have the incubation services, where we help startups with everything which they need in order to succeed on top. So it's not only fundraising, but it's access to exchanges, access to VCs, access to partners, access to all our marketing services, including the crypto app, including the Facebook channels, etc.
You have a crypto app. Tell us a little bit more about it. You have several million users or downloads, and what's the crypto app all about?
Yes. So basically, to answer the first question is
sure.
we have in the Metaverse, we have several clients which we incubate, and that's how we have a play in the Metaverse. We have a Metaverse for fine art, we have a Metaverse for sports, which we're incubating, etc. And when I would like to come back to the crypto app, so where we help them, all the projects which are launching our Launchpads to get even more traction, is the crypto app. The crypto app is a competitor of Blockfolio, where you can check the prices and where you can also track your portfolio. You have a news aggregator. In the future, we're going to have an earn program or a staking program. So we have quite big plans for the crypto app. And obviously, with 4 million downloads, 1 million active users, if we do push notifications of our Launchpads, of our incubator services, then our projects get a decent amount of awareness. And with one of the Metaverses, which we mentioned before, we help them to incubate on our Launchpad. With all the marketing awareness, we help them to get from 0 to 16,000 real followers, just with our marketing activities, as well as we help them to raise around about $3 million. And now they also got some of our key partners, exchange listings, etc. So now they just have to deliver on their project, and then we're quite confident that they will succeed.
So it's a one-stop shop, so to say. you're offering. And like you said that you are going, and you said you're planning. Not all of that is already live, right? Like some of the offerings, they are now currently developed, or you developed
no, like everything which TrustSwap is offering, which you just mentioned, is already live. So Launchpad is live, the crypto app is live. So when we say we in terms of the metaverse is because it's, I mean, you see how closely we work together with the projects that I say we, is that we help them with everything they need. We really like, and we don't charge them money, we charge them a certain percentage of the tokens so that we get perfect alignment. And then like if they need support on the tech side, we help them. If they need support on the marketing side, we help them. If we need support on the business development side, we help them. So literally, basically they're similar as a consulting company where we go in, we help them with a certain project. We see, okay, they're at a certain stage, they have the funds, etc., to hire the right people, and then we let them go and incubate the next projects.
Okay, nice. So sorry for jumping around like with the metaverse and the crypto app, but that was like a buzzword because
exactly.
You mentioned actually that crypto app when we were in Austin, Texas for Consensus, and I downloaded it then, and I really like the graphics and how it is actually showing the content. It's really well made. That's why I wanted to know a little bit more, and I remembered that it's in the millions about the downloads, but not exactly the number. With the metaverse, I already said there's not like the metaverse, there are several metaverses, and if I want to create such a metaverse, I can come to you. I know that you publicly announced that one of your incubation companies is ArtMeta, and ArtMeta was developing together for VP Bank this metaverse experience they have. And VP Bank, Marcel Fleisch, was already a guest on our channel, and he back then talked about tokenization of assets and how they use the Liechtenstein framework. And I was able some weeks ago, I was able to experience it myself, right? Like they tokenized an Andy Warhol, and that might be boring for a lot of people, right? But you have like not the experience in the metaverse. That's amazing, right? If you have this VR goggle, you can walk around and then you see like this Andy Warhol. But for me, it was very interesting to see like how they did it from a legal perspective and how they used our legal framework here. So, but that's a very good example, right? So if for example, a service provider wants to do that, they could come to one of your portfolio companies or even ask you, and then you will help them to create such an environment, to create the metaverse, and to think about how you tokenize also assets. That's interesting. And now we talked a little bit about incubation, about good projects, what you did, what brought you to crypto. And Jeff, when we talked a little bit before in preparation for our today's talk, you said one of the reasons why you are still in crypto or why you are in crypto is that not every project is amazing and not every project is without any risks and challenges. That's one thing. And maybe you can shed a little bit light of here as well. Like, why are you still in crypto?
Yeah, multifaceted reasons for sure. I think cryptocurrency and blockchain solves a lot of problems that are just created by unnecessary red tape and regulations. You see a lot of countries and regulators really stifling innovation and also the ability for people to act as their own sovereign individual, to be able to make their own decisions, to not only vote with their dollar, but to be able to choose what dollar to vote with. One thing that, as I was starting to research more and more about Bitcoin, was how monetary policy actually works and how the economy really works and what's happening behind the scenes, right?
I understood Bitcoin before I understood how fiat is created.
Yeah.
That's way more complex.
That's exactly it. I think earlier you were saying something about, it's so uncertain, like people are skeptical was the word that you used about Bitcoin. Because, it's like this infinite amount or like it's intangible or whatever conception people have. Then you start to unravel exactly what's happening in our world, and it's like, this isn't the way that things should be. The world is currently serving a certain power dynamic and power structure, and I see crypto as that democratizing access to be able to really bring that back to the people. So that's my primary drive in crypto, is to be able, whether it's like the tokenization of an Andy Warhol, which may seem like mundane to some people, but being able to bring liquidity to illiquid markets, I think is so important, whether it's art, real estate, stocks, or being able to, like, for, as we're doing Launchpads, okay, how can people get their ideas to the public faster, get traction faster, fundraise capital faster, really be able to get the critical mass and the ability to drive a good idea forward. I feel like the system that we currently have is really set to stifle ideas. Yeah. And so I feel like crypto is something that can really help them blossom.
Yeah. And even if it sounds mundane, in the end, you can co-own at least one small portion of an Andy Warhol. Mm-hmm. And that was not possible before because it was just too expensive, right, in the end.
Yes.
And too complex to do that. I mean, it was possible in theory, but it was way more complex as it is now with tokenization of assets. And so it opens a lot of more possibilities and potential. And you said that sometimes regulation really hinders innovation, and that is actually a pity because I think, and that's what we see, I think, all around the globe, right? If you start to, or if you start to think about regulation because you have a bad case, right, you will end up getting bad regulation.
That's
right?
it, yeah.
But if you think of okay, what's the really innovative part of this new technologies, then you might end up realizing what's the potential and what is needed to support it, right? To support the innovation.
Yeah.
And I think that is the right approach.
Yeah.
And I think we also discussed a little bit about, and that's a huge thing. I think, we discussed about identities, and self-sovereign identities is a big thing. Can you explain that a little bit better, in easy terms, so everybody can understand what is self-sovereign identity and why is it so important for the blockchain space?
For sure. So I'm certainly not the one to give the Webster's definition of this, and I'm sure everyone would have a varying definition of what self-sovereignty or self-sovereign identity means to them. To me, it's the ability to be an independent individual, to make choices based on what's aligned with you, to not be taken out of your own moral compass by somebody else's governing decision. That'd be the simplest explanation. I could go a lot more in depth, but that's probably it. What would you think?
I mean, for me, it's that I'm actually owning my identity, and I decide on purpose what I want to do and which information I am sharing, right? So if you ask me, and there is, for example, one requirement that I have to be over the age of 18, and you have to check that I can use one of my identities in a way that you only get the information that I'm allowed to buy it, but not if I'm a male or female, what's my date of birth. You don't you don't need all of this information. And I want to decide which of my identities I want to use there, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to maybe get on board with a million systems. But as you said, that's a very broad topic, but I know that it is really crucial.
Yeah.
And one of the big things we have to fix in the future. There are several approaches, but that's going to be a big thing. Maybe Ivan, I know that you're going to be a speaker at our Token Summit, which we'll have in Liechtenstein, October 13th at the Verdutzer Saal. What is your topic there? What are you going to talk about?
So that brings us to the last offering which TrustSwap is offering after we said Team Finance, the crypto app and Launchpads. The fourth arm is our NFT arm. And here we create custom-made NFT platforms for top companies, celebrities, teams, etc. So we have customers like UNICEF, like Accenture, like T1, like Titanic, so the family office that owns the real Titanic ship, which are going to make underwater pictures, taking real physical art pieces from the ship, which you can co-own, etc. So we have quite a lot of very interesting projects, and we have quite a lot of experience in how to launch them. And my topic basically will be is how to launch an NFT drop, what you have to consider from the different angles, so how to make it a success, in how to sell it out, what is the pricing which you should take on, which platform you should use, which chain you should use, what are the regulatory issues which you might have, etc.
Nice. I'm really looking forward to your talk, Dan.
Thank you.
I have one final question for all of my guests. We're running a little bit out of time. But my final question is to both of you. What is your favorite, normally asked, coffee drink? I know that you are not a big coffee person, so to say, but what is your favorite drink?
Yeah, I'm going to go with kombucha.
kombucha, and like it's healthy, right?
That's what they say. At least that's what I'm believing, because it's delicious. So I'm pounding it down.
Do you have any background information? How is that like produced, kombucha, or?
For sure. So it's called a SCOBY. It's basically like the same thing that you find in apple cider vinegar. It's a culture or a bacteria. And so what you do is you take sugar and tea and you put it in with this culture or this bacteria, and the bacteria will actually start to eat the sugar and grow, and it ferments this. And so what the whole thing is that it just infuses this drink full of probiotics. So, and then the sugar that's left over is just like very refined and sweet, but also very healthy. And it's delicious.
Good, nice, interesting. Ivan, what's your favorite drink?
So yeah, I mean, I'm unfortunately not a big coffee drinker, but I start to enjoy tea. So especially after spending quite a lot of time in South Africa and in India, which are the tea countries, I really got used to drink tea during the different meetings. So when we have a meeting and discuss several things, you probably recognize that I always order a cup of tea. So yeah, that's what I like to enjoy.
And tea is very complex as coffee. I mean, in the end, you know that you have like green tea, you have to prepare it completely different than like a fruit tea. And people like sometimes they ask like, why is my green tea always so bitter? Because they brew it just too hot, right? And not a lot of people know about that. But I'm a big coffee person. That's true. But I'm also a big tea person, to be very honest. Like I do really. That's with everything, right? If you understand products and how they're made, and you get to know how you can influence the taste with like different methods and steps, that's the interesting part. And speaking of tea, I mean, I'm currently drinking a cold brew or cold drip, which is just like another way of how to make coffee instead of using a portafilter machine where you actually have hot water going through the coffee and extracting the flavors. And here you just you grind it a little bit coarser, the coffee, and then like every second there's one drip of water going through the coffee that's extracting a lot more flavors. And it's amazing. It's an amazing summer drink. It actually tastes a little bit more than tea, and I'm thinking of serving you one later, Ivan, if you want to try cold drip coffee. Maybe you're going to be a coffee lover soon.
Convert. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. It was a big pleasure to have you here. And I hope to see you then at least for the Token Summit in October 13th, 2022 in Vaduz. And would love to see you in Liechtenstein for our next barbecue maybe we were going to have. And all the best for your products and your company, and hope to see you soon.
Much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. I hope to see you soon as well.